Hey guys, gals, and NBs. So I'm here with the Behringer Deepmind 12. I made a poll on my channel wondering if you would like to see more content with it, and people said yes. I ended up selling my original Deepmind 12 years ago after the Behringer controversy where they were just being real asshats, to say the least. And yeah, that really turned me off of them for a while, but then I just stopped caring. It just... The apathy for all companies are pretty shitty for the most part. I mean, I'm going to be editing this on an Apple computer after this video is done. I'm recording this on a Sony camera right now, and those companies have been known to be atrocious too. So, I'm just saying, putting that out there because there's been so much controversy about just signal virtuing these days for a company. I mean, all companies pretty much hate you, so whatever. That said, I'm going to say the Deepmind 12 is still excellent value for the money. I think this video is going to be entitled something along the lines of, is the Deepmind 12 still worth it these days? And I don't have to put a year in that because I'm going to say it probably is. At least right now in early 2024, February to be exact, it still is worth it. Especially for the used prices. You can get these for around $500 for the desktop version. And even new at $699, it's excellent. There's nothing really in the market like it with this many voices and this good of an effects section. The effects section itself, we'll go over that, is probably the best effects section under $1,000. The next best synth that I can think of is more expensive, and that's Novation Peak. The Novation Peak probably has the best sounding reverb of any synth I've ever heard, period. That said, probably not the Moog series, the Moog 1 or whatever it's called. I've heard the effects on that those are eventide. They sound very nice. But the Peak is probably the pinnacle of any synth's reverb, regardless of price. Then this is a little bit down. The reverbs aren't that good, but most of the other effects are absolutely awesome, like delay and modulation. So yeah, this video is kind of just like what I like about it and why I got another one. I will say that one of the unfortunate things is my Peak, which I absolutely loved, is departed of this world. It got water damaged, unfortunately, and that was around 2020 when things happened. It was hard to get things at that point in time, and my insurance, while it might have covered it, the deductible was too high. It was $1,500. It was more than the synth was worth. If you guys want to see more videos on the Peak, I'm thinking about getting another one soon. I'm selling some old synths that I don't use. The Op6, for example, it's not an old synth, but I just recently sold that. I don't use it. I got a very good price for it. So yeah, let me stop rambling. Let's get into what I like about the Deepmind 12. And now that I've stated what my view on Behringer is, where I just don't give a damn. Yeah. So what is the Deepmind 12? And a lot of people say it's a Juno clone. I don't think it's a Juno clone. It is kind of a Juno clone. The reason being is because it has obviously the front panel looks like a Juno. It looks like a Juno 106 kind of layout and things like that. I think it's more of a JX or Super JX clone, like a JX10 or something, or a JX8P clone, because it has two distinctly different oscillators that can be pitched differently. It doesn't just have a main DCO and a sub oscillator and things like that. So it's more of like I said, a JX clone. And that's excellent because we can do some really cool stuff with that. So yeah, this video is mostly going to be me just about little things that I really like about it. I'm going to try and not make it too long, but yeah. So I have a default patch here, and to do that is super easy. You just hold down Program and Compare, and then it'll... And yeah, by default, you get a square wave and a square wave, or a pulse wave, I should say, because it has PWM, and a sawtooth. And then you have a second oscillator, which the unfortunate thing about the second oscillator is it can only do a square wave, but it has a few tricks up its sleeve. So let's hear those tricks. The major trick is the tone mod. So let's bring in the second oscillator. So we have nothing now. Bring in. It's a square, right? Well, we can go in and we can change the range of it. So obviously we can change the footage, so we can go all the way up to 4 feet. I don't know if the first oscillator can do 2. Let's see, can the first? No. So the minimum that these can do in size is a 4-foot oscillator, which so yeah, 16 to 4, and it can do it in increments of yeah, so like that. But yeah, so that's one thing that the Juno can't do. Obviously, on the sub oscillator, it's a sub oscillator. You can't change the pitch and things like that. So here's the feature up its sleeve that the second oscillator can do. We can pitch mod, and pitch mod, let's see if we can see a visual option. It's not pitch mod, tone mod. So tone mod is kind of like a weird hybrid PWM shaping tool. It's kind of like PWM, but not exactly, because it changes the variance of the pulses and where they sit in it. You can see that clearly. So if we have it all the way down, you have a perfect just square wave. But if we bring up we have some asymmetry in it. It almost sounds like hard sync, which it's not, because we can add that in as well. But yeah, so that is a unique thing that this can do that a Juno can't. I think the JX8 can do some kind of cross mod. I have the JX8P, which is like the little boutique, and it can do some cool stuff like that. But I think the real hardware can do that too. So that's why I'm like, hey, this is not a Juno. And that said, I believe Behringer is working on a Juno clone as well still. But yeah, so that sounds really cool. And yeah, you can obviously change the level. As far as I know, unless I'm missing something, and like I said, I had this back in the day, back when it first really came out, back in 2017 when the module version came out. But I don't think you can change the volume of the primary oscillator. I think that is just 100% controlled by the VCA. So obviously the envelopes and stuff like that, and the VCA itself can control it. But you can't control... let me turn that back up. That's going to be a problem. But you can't control the volume just of the first oscillator, but you can of the second one, obviously. So yeah, that's one of the caveats there, that the first oscillator is, it just can't do that. But we do have PWM on the first oscillator, so it sounds different than the tone mod, obviously. Tone mod, especially like right in the middle, you get some really metallic sounds. And we're going to bring that down, and we're actually going to use that. Let's bring that to 8 feet. Yeah. And yeah, just as an aside, in one of my future videos, I'm going to redo one of my most popular videos ever, which was on the Deepmind 12, and that's emulating a string ensemble using the Deepmind. The reason being is the Deepmind is one of the few synths with the effects section. It's super versatile. It's one of the only synths that you can do the proper ensemble thing where you have parallel modulated choruses and stuff like that. But yeah, so that out of the way, let's stop just messing with that specific sound and go to one of the other things that I really like. We'll keep it like there, and then we'll mess with the... So I was going to say, in the default patch, you have some control on the VCA where the velocity sense is turned on. So if you, velocity sense will map the velocity of your keyboard, which I have velocity turned off of my launch pad here. It's sending all the time the same velocity data. But if you had a keyboard that sent velocity data, you would have a lighter touch would equal lighter volume. I don't like that when I'm doing most of my synth patches. So just be aware in the VCA section, you can click it, and you can go to velocity sense and turn it down. We're going to turn that down. But yeah, so I turn velocity sense off. That's one of the things I turn off. But yeah, I want to go to the effects section. That's what I really like about this synth. Again, I think this has some of the best effects of any synth under $1,000. I don't think there's one that's better. The major reason for that is you have a dedicated effects processor, because the tones are generated in the analog realm. There's real DCOs in this that do everything. So the effects section can be freed up to just do effects, which is awesome. On a lot of other synths, you have the effects section is as part of the main DSP, basically. The other one that doesn't have that is the Minilog. Obviously that's the analog, so the effects section is handled separately by its own dedicated DSP, as far as I remember. But I don't really like the effects all that much on the Minilog XD. Excellent synth, not so good effects. So yeah. So let's go over to one of my favorite effects on this, and that is just the delay. So we're going here. We got to find delay. There it is. There's a few delays I like, but just the standard delay is really cool. So now that the delay is added, we can go here. We're going to do this as a insert. No, we're going to do it as a send effect. We want to bring it down to 50. So the cool thing is you can use data entry to do all of your major movements. So you get it right around here. It's set to 48. Then you can use the control wheel. Yeah. And yeah, set the mix to 50. And the time can go pretty high up. 1.5 seconds. That's pretty awesome. And you have a mod section for the, it's a mode section, not mod, but a mode section where we can set it to actually do ping pong. So we're going to do that, set it to ping pong. And it sounds really cool. Let's listen. All right, and let's bring down the time. So yeah, the delay sounds absolutely fantastic, and I really like that. The other cool thing you can do with the effects parameters, I'm not going to get too far into it, at least in this video, is you can use them as mod destinations. So yeah, this has a pretty advanced mod matrix. I forget how many mod slots it has. Well, we can look really quick. It has 8. It has 8 source and destinations. It has 2 LFOs in it, and the LFOs have very complex shapes, as you can see. You have sample and hold and sample and glide, which are things you don't generally see. I mean, you do see random oscillators, but sample and glide's kind of cool. That's unique. But yeah, so you can modulate parts of the effects section. Again, that's advanced. I'm not going to get too much into this, but yeah. So yeah, delay sounds absolutely awesome. Let's if you change any of the effects when you've made changes to them, it'll complain because it doesn't want to. When you change the effects, you remove any of the settings you put into it. But yeah, let's go and check the chorus. It has 2 choruses, and the chorus D is a dimension chorus, which actually sounds pretty good. And then it has a regular chorus, which also sounds really good. All right, let's just hear it on a square wave. Let's turn it off. We'll do no mix. And with some careful tweaking, you can definitely get into that Juno/JX chorus sound. It has a lot of settings. You can change the width of each of the left and right. I hope you're listening to this in stereo. So yeah, let's turn up. Let's actually go all the way down. So now it's all in the center. And if we change it all to the left and right hard band. All right. You have lots of different things you can do with it. Like you can change the speed, obviously. At the bottom, you have actual tempo syncing, so you can do this with any kind of tempo. And then further up on you can do just internal LFO. So yeah, the chorus sounds absolutely fantastic. The reverb isn't the greatest, but I do like the hall reverb. So let's listen to the hall reverb. That's a emulation of the chamber's pretty good too, but the hall is pretty good. The hall is an emulation of the Lexicon. Oh God, is it the 480? I don't remember if it's the 480 or the 224. It's one of them. It's one of those big rack units, but it gives you a lot of options. Gives you decay. Obviously, if a reverb algorithm doesn't give you decay, there's something wrong. But yeah, let's turn it all the way up. So it's not too bad. It's a little on the metallic side. It's not quite as smooth as a real Lexicon or a good emulation like the UAFX Golden. But let's turn down the pre-decay. I usually don't have any kind of pre-decay set up when I am using a Hall algorithm to be super ambient, unless I need a little bit of space there. Turn the size. You have dampening, which gives you a high frequency dampening. It makes it sound a little darker. I turn it down a little bit. I turn it to around 3K usually. 4K. Diffusion smears your reverb tails. I always turn that up. Let's just turn that up. Doesn't sound half bad for just reverb algorithms and something, especially at this price point. So the shape, I believe, changes the modulation shape of, or no, it doesn't change the modulation shape. It changes like room characteristic shapes. I guess it's kind of reflective surfaces. You have your mod speed, no mod depth, but you do have speed. I keep it around the 80s. And then spread is your stereo spread. I like to turn that all the way up. And yeah, so it's a really good reverb. So let's mess with a few things here. Let's use a slow pad into it, I guess. That'll be pretty cool. And then we can hear the filter. Okay, so another thing I should mention, this is pretty unique. You can change the curves of the envelope. So if I want it to be logarithmic, if I want it to be linear, so I can change it. So I can make it, that's more of a linear, that's more of a logarithmic. And then, yeah, it lets you change how you want it to go. So all right, so let's hear the awesome filter. Let's turn the filter all the way down and go back into here. And we have velocity sensing on the filter too. Let's turn that off. And so let's go to the VCF. And we're going to now go ahead and engage the envelope for the filter. So now the VCF control here on our envelope will actually do something. So let's see. Why are we not seeing it? Oh, I'm in curves. Ha. Okay, that's gonna mess stuff up. I still have curves open. All right, so let's turn up this and then. Okay, so we don't want it to be that bright, so we'll turn down the envelope a little. That really does sound pretty good. So yeah, we're gonna add a little resonance to here, and the resonance sounds really good on this. Yeah, and then we need to go here and make sure that we have enough release on this. Oh yeah, so like this, and then let's make it linear. So we lose a lot of low end there with the resonance. But we have boost. If you engage boost, you get bass boost. So yeah, that is a cool feature. And yeah, so let's engage one of its cool modes, which is the unison. And because you have 12 voices to mess with, we can do a double unison, which would turn this into the Juno 6 or a JP8 territory, being 6 voices, but we'll have double on that. So yeah, so we'll have basically double voices playing, and well, technically in that case you would have 4 oscillators per voice if you were doing that, but if you had both oscillators going. Let's just go ahead and switch over to, in Polyphony, we're going to change this. I love the data entry slider. So Unison 2, we're going to change the Unison detune to, we have a dedicated slider for that, so actually we can actually see what it looks like. It's cool. You see how it spreads it out. Go ahead and kill the reverb really quick. We're gonna, well, I'm not gonna bypass the effects. We can, but I'm gonna go ahead and just switch off the effects for right now. That's with 0 effects. And now let's add the chorus, because I really like the chorus on this. We're going to have the chorus D, which is a dimension chorus, so the SD320 clone, or the new pedal, the DC2W clone of that. It has a decent sounding chorus. It doesn't sound as good as the real thing, but it sounds good enough. So let's turn on that. We're going to flip switch. We're going to switch 3 and 4, and that'll give us a big sound. Let's turn off the resonance. Yeah, so that sounds really nice for a Juno-esque sound, I guess. I mean, again, I don't feel it's a Juno. I feel it's a JX. But as you can see now, we're using 2. So, yeah. Some of the other cool features you have, let's go ahead and turn off the chorus again. So we're actually going to just bypass the effects. So if you want to make it sound even warmer, even with detune, what we can do is we can set oscillator drift, and that is in the poly mode here. This is the voice menu, basically. So if you click edit to here, you get the voice menu. And we can change oscillator drift. So each oscillator is going to be slightly out of tune. We're going to turn off unison to hear that. So we're going to go back into poly. Each voice is going to sound nice and pretty in tune with each other. The temperament and everything will be really good. But now if we turn up oscillator drift, let's just turn it all the way up. Let's not make it so long. Oops. Oh, I'm in curves again. Dang. All right. The intonation on that is absolutely terrible. That almost sounds like a whole tone, doesn't it? So yeah, that's with oscillator drift all the way up. But yeah, then we can get it back into spec. Could also turn the filter into a 2-pole. So yeah, a little bit of oscillator drift adds a little warmth to it. That's a little too much. Pretty cool. I love that feature. The new Oberheim clone that they just released has a whole section on degrading the synth, and that's pretty cool. I'm actually looking at getting one of those eventually. I don't know if I want to get the keyboard version of the Oberheim clone that Behringer has released, or if I want to wait for the desktop version, because the keyboard version is so big. But yeah, that said, just an aside. So yeah, let's turn, and then we can even do like the detune can go up to, or I'm sorry, the unison can go up to using all. Oops, I don't know what we're doing here. Why? Oh yeah, okay, so that limits it. I'm doing this wrong. We need to do unison, so we can use all the unison. It's like a super saw almost. Well, it's not a saw, but here we go. There we go, super saw. It's kind of unusable because it's a mono synth at that point for that kind of stuff, but if we do it down to, let's do unison 3, that gives us 4 voices. It should sound pretty cool. Sounds a little weird because we still have the oscillator drift engaged, but there we go. Yeah, so it gets so big and wonderful sounding. Yeah, so this video is already up to a half an hour now, and I've just been going on and on about little things you can do about it. I just kind of, again, wanted to make a quick video, and it turned into a long video, of course. That's how my stuff goes, about why I still like the Deepmind 12. And yeah, it's just a very full-featured synth for the stuff you can do. Yes, there's better synths on the market, even for the same price point, if you want clean and pristine sound. But this has very different sounding filters, and it does have some very unique features in the effects section, especially for being under $1,000. Just sounds absolutely wonderful. Is it better than something like the Peak? Absolutely not, but it's also half the cost of a Peak pretty much at these in this day and age. So yeah, before I quit the video, some of the things that you definitely want to look for if you want to buy one of these used. So I've actually, my very first model, I had to send back once because it had a screen issue, and then a second time because there was noise. Then I found out that the noise issue was actually an issue across the board on the noise issue. So there is a noise issue at around 12 kilohertz. There's a little bit of peaky noise there. In most cases, I don't hear it. If you keep the gain down low enough on your recording interface and the gain down on this, and you don't use extra gain staging with the effects, like if you don't use a distortion or whatever, you won't hear it. The other major thing that you want to be careful with is, like I said, so the first one back in 2017, the build quality wasn't as good as it is today. This one just feels a little more solid for some reason. I don't know if it's just I haven't had one for so long, and they've gotten better on the build quality. But the other thing, like I said, one of the originals that I had to send back had a screen issue. Within a few weeks, the backlight gave out. But luckily, it was within the 30-day return. And then my second unit, which I had for about, I think, a year and a half or so after everything, didn't have any issues. So just be aware of that. if you're buying a used one, make sure the backlight and the screen work. The other thing that you want to look for on used units that I know is an issue is a dead voice. So you can do a voice check with it. I'm going to show you where it is. It's under global, and you keep clicking global until you click to where it says the version information. You can go to calibrate, and you can calibrate voices, and you can do a voice check. It's right here. And then you just start it. It takes about a minute. It'll tell you if all the voices are good. If you're getting a used one, I would make sure that the buyer will do that for you, or let you do it when you're in person if you're buying one of these, because you can get a dead voice. I've seen a few issues of the earlier ones, like I said, with dead voices that go over time. I never had a dead voice issue, but just be aware of that. Another issue I want to bring up is the PWM itself. So I guess I can go over that really quick. So do we have this isn't something you can generally fix this. There's a calibration for PWM, and every unit I've had of one of these or have tested, the PWM out of the factory is never calibrated the right way. I didn't want to calibrate it myself by running the calibration routine so you can hear what it sounds like. But the PWM, all right, let's do this. Let's, we have unison. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start a new patch. All right. So what I'm getting at here is the different PWM pulses across each oscillator will be slightly different. And that's just kind of a thing that'll happen. And if it's not properly calibrated across the board, some of them will sound different. So we're going to turn up the PWM all the way so we get to the most narrow pulse. Okay, see how 3 is much quieter? It's not a voice issue. If you do a full calibration on the PWM, that should go away, and they should all be pretty much the same. That's just one thing to be aware of. It's not that you have a dead voice when you turn on PWM all the way. So I can just go here now. Notice, now we're just fine. The 3 just has a slightly different shape to the PWM pulse. So be aware of that. You can calibrate that by itself. I would just go through a full calibration. Leave this thing on in, temperature drift isn't a big issue as far as I know with the DCO. The main oscillator that this is getting its clock from isn't as sensitive as like other synths obviously on the market with VCOs, but keep it on for about 30 minutes in about the environment that you would use it, and then to run a full calibration when you first get one of these if you get it new or used, and a lot of the issues will be sorted out, especially that PWM thing. I haven't went through it because I think a full calibration takes like an hour. It takes a long time. Make sure that you don't want to use it for an hour. Just set it on for 30 minutes to get it warmed up. Run a calibration. The other thing I'm going to bring up, if you're getting one used one of these, there's 2 fans inside of it. There's one in the chassis, I think right around here. It doesn't do much because obviously there's not much air intake on it. It must do something. Well, actually, I heard from a few people saying that the fans on the Deepmind are just a relic of the original prototypes and that the actual production units never really needed them. But that said, there's 2 fans in it. I would verify that, put your ear up to a used one and just check both the areas that's around here, and make sure you don't hear any weird grinding sounds or something like that. If it's a new one, send it back, get a new one. Don't worry about trying to fix it yourself. These are constantly produced, so you should be able to get a new one. And if it's a used one and there's some fan issues, even though that's not 100% needed unless it's a really hot environment, as far as I know, I'm just saying from what I've done research on, then just pass up on it. There's something defective with it. The fans are just, something you don't want to deal with. I do like, for peace of mind, keeping them going because it's nice to keep the power supply, obviously, cool in this because this has an internal power supply. Yeah. So those are the things to really look for. I would see if there's any excessive noise. You'll have some 12 kilohertz noise, like I said earlier. That can be mitigated with your gain staging. The headphone amplifier on this is very aggressive, and you'll always hear that 12 kilohertz. Like I said, every unit of this I've ever used, including the keyboard versions and the desktop versions, I've heard that 12 kilohertz noise. It's not something I don't think you can fix. Some people have said it's grounding issues, but I haven't heard a before and after comparison of it actually changing anything if you try and ground this a little better internally. So, I mean, I would love to hear a video where somebody's fixed that, but yeah, you just have to be aware that it's either a shielding or a ground issue that they all kind of have. The fan speed, the backlight intensity, things like that don't change it. Having it plugged into USB, not plugged into USB doesn't really change that. MIDI, external clock and stuff doesn't change it. So yeah, be aware of that. So I just wanted to bring up the caveats that the Deepmind 12 has. Obviously there's going to be some because it's a cheap analog synth that has so many features. Obviously they're going to skimp somewhere in build quality or, human rights ethics to make it at this point, but it is what it is. So yeah, thanks for watching. I just kind of wanted to bring it up. I know this is more of a rambly video. I feel like it might not get as much traction as my other videos did, but hey, maybe it will. I kind of did it as a, hey, is it still worth it? And obviously, as I said in the beginning, it is. I don't think it's ever not going to be worth it unless another large analog synth under $1,000 comes out with a great effects section. The Behringer Pro 800 is half the cost of this. I think it's like $399. So yeah, it's about half the cost, but it has no internal effects. If you do plan on using internal effects and you have a keyboard and everything, and if you're planning on using external effects and you don't mind not having a keyboard version, the Pro 800 is probably your better bet. It's more advanced in terms it has multiple waveforms and things like that. It doesn't have as big of a mod section, but it does. Its raw sound, I will say, is better than this. But yeah. Anyway, again, thanks for watching. I'm going to stop it here. The video is already extremely long. If you stayed this long, then hey, thanks for being a fan. Yeah.